no parent probably wants their children to fail or to go on hard times or to rack up credit card debt. So they want to be there to financially support them. But at what level are you enabling childish behavior and you're not letting your children grow up to be adults? So this is a very fine line.
Welcome to Upticks with Jake Falcon, founder and CEO of Falcon Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, we help high net worth individuals overcome financial complexities. We do this by enhancing financial literacy and discussing topics in a language free from industry jargon. Join us as we help explain exactly what having a solid financial plan means, as Jake draws from years of experience in helping hundreds of individuals get financially organized and focused on their goals. We hope you find Upticks educational, entertaining, and shareable. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back to Upticks with Jake and Cory.
Cory,
welcome back to the show.
Again. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. I like the tunes we got going.
Got the intro music going today. It's sunny in Kansas City. Feels like it's about 2 weeks we didn't see the sun, so that's great.
I looked at the shows we recorded the last few weeks, and I thought to myself, wow, it is pretty dark and gray behind both of us. We've got some sunshine today. We'll take it.
Any new announcements you want to make, Cory, before we dive into today's headlines?
Yes, I had my last physical therapy appointment yesterday, Jake, and my physical therapist cleared me for racket sports. It has been a long...
Yeah, I was giving you a little bit of a hard time on that yesterday, and I want to apologize. I was like, drink more water, Cory, and get some rest. But I guess that physical therapy, do you buy into it? Did it work?
Yes, it helped a lot because before I started doing that, I wouldn't have known what I needed to be working on to get my ankle back where it is.
That's true.
So I can play racket sports.
Those physical
That's been
therapists,
the big eye-opening.
Those physical therapists, yeah, they're good for that. So I was giving you a hard time because it feels like you win a lot.
It's been 2 months that I haven't played, and it's been about a month of PT, about once a week, once or twice.
Yeah, be careful out there.
Yes, yeah.
I think my tip for you is you need to drink water and you need to stretch.
Also good.
You can't go out there hungover and no stretching and expect to not get injured. It's too physical of a sport. Can't be doing that.
That's right.
Well, good for you. Congrats.
I'm ready to play next week. I'm back.
All right. Well, be careful. I'm telling you, Cory, water before and stretching. Look at Tom Brady. Whether you like Tom Brady or not, that guy played in the NFL well into his 40s, and it was all about stretching and hydration for him.
Right, and he put all his money in crypto.
No, it's not what I'm talking about.
I know
what I'm talking about. So
nobody's got it all figured out. But you're right.
I think he does. I think he had it figured out when it came to playing sports and into older age.
Fair.
You're not in your 20s anymore, Cory. You're going to be a father. You got to think about these things.
I'm not in my 40s either. I still got some youth about me.
You do. But I don't think water and stretching will hurt you.
Nope. I agree with you completely. We are aligned.
All right, let's do it, Cory. I'll kick us off here. So, Cory, your advisor may be retiring soon. Here's what to know. Cory, is there something you need to tell me?
Not me.
Okay,
I don't know if you looked at this data, Jake. You want to guess what percentage of licensed advisors in the United States are expected to retire in the next decade?
So what percentage of advisors are going to retire in the next 10 years? Here's the problem I have with that, Cory, real quick before I give you my guess. I didn't look at your stuff.
Okay.
I think and I might be one of these one day, and you might be one of these, but I think a lot of these advisors say they're going to retire, but then they don't, because our profession is very unique, and we're already doing this. If you surround yourself with very technical, good communicators, you can actually still be the advisor and have financial planners and traders and operations people help serve and support your clients. So I know there's a study, and I'll give you my guess, but I think that the numbers are wrong. I think more advisors will work longer. But let's say 50%. I say half of advisors.
40%.
Okay, which is a lot.
40% was the number.
That is a lot. That is
a lot. Almost half in 10 years. Which I do think, though, it speaks. I agree with your point, Jake. I also just think it speaks to the demographics of a lot of advisors. There's a lot more people that are 20 years older than us, than you and me, Jake, or 30 years older than you and me, than there are people 10 years younger than us that are doing the same thing, which is the point here. So the article was just really highlighting.
Quick note on that, Cory. I think to toot our own horns, like you just mentioned, there's actually not a lot of advisors that are our ages, weirdly, that
I
are
know.
the lead advisors that own the business like you and I do. I'm 42 and you're 35, 34.
34. Don't
You've
age
been
me too
34
quick.
for like 10 years, Corey. But anyways, you're 34, I'm
10 months.
42. We're in this kind of sweet spot that, I've been doing this. This is my 18th year being a wealth advisor. I was an advisor during the financial crisis. And what year is this for you?
This is year number 14 for me.
Yeah. So the good news is you and I are quite a bit younger than a typical advisor. However, we've both been in this business 14 and 18 years that we've seen some stuff, right? We've been through some crazy markets and global events. So we're I think to me, again, I'm tooting my own horn, but I think we add a lot of value to our clients' lives, and they're like, hey, we've been around the block. We're not rookies by any mean, but we're also don't have one foot out the door looking to retire anytime soon. So anyways, there's not a lot of advisor our ages that are the lead advisors. Again, we're the primary advisors in our business. So anyways, go ahead.
No, it's all right. That you're exactly right, and that's a good point. And I'm glad you pointed that out because I feel the same way. I'm glad you said it. The article was really just talking about if this is the case for you specifically, if your advisor is going to retire, what to do, and just pointed out some good tips like interview several candidates, check out their background and registration, and if there's any disciplinary history on BrokerCheck, which is a platform that people can use if someone's if an advisor is licensed. That's a platform that you can look up their
Yeah,
record.
let's rewind this a little bit too, though. So I like the first one, interview candidates. Like many of our new clients, Corey, come to us, and we're one of three perhaps that they're interviewing. So how many would you suggest people interview when they're shopping? Like, let's say their advisor's 65 or 60 or whatever, and they don't have a succession plan in place because a lot of the advisors don't, and they're going to go shop and hire a new advisor. How many do you recommend people interview before making a decision?
I would say 2 to 3.
Yeah, I mean, it can get really confusing if you go see 10. And what do you suggest they look for when they are interviewing?
I think what they should look for is the right answers to their questions. And the questions that I would ask would be, are you a fiduciary? What's your succession plan? That's a good question to ask. What is it that you can do for me? And also, I think for someone who's interviewing an advisor, it's important for them to be able to clearly state what it is that they're looking for, what they want that advisor to do for them, and make sure the answers to those questions are aligned with what they're looking for.
Yeah, I agree. And to tack on to this, I think set expectations. So there needs to be clear expectations into what you're looking for when you're hiring an advisor and what the advisor is going to provide you. And I think bedside manner is very important, actually, Corey. I think this is a trust business, and you've got to trust that person is going to look out for your best interests, and also that they're good communicators, and even more importantly, good listeners. I think a lot of advisors fail at this, and they either hide behind jargon and they're using all this fancy language, or they're they are high and mighty and they talk down to people, which is disgusting when they do that, or they don't listen. If the client says, hey, I need help figuring out tax planning, and they just brush it under the rug and they don't actually listen to the client, that's a problem. So again, you've got to kind of gel. The advisor's got to have a likability. You've got to trust them.
Yes.
And, again, set those clear expectations. Good. The second thing you mentioned was BrokerCheck. Big fan of BrokerCheck. You literally put that in your Google, go to BrokerCheck. You can type in Jake Falcon or Cory Bittner. You can see our educational background, how long we've been in the business, and most importantly, if we have any negative disclosures on our permanent records. I think that's a good one. What's your third one, Corey?
The third one is ask the right questions, which I already really kind of touched on here.
Good. Yeah. So I like that. Good. And that's crazy. So 40%. But I would love to see this study 10 years from now. And I argue, Corey, that 40% of advisors are not going to retire because I see it all the time. I mean, you remember when we were at our previous firm, I think you were there. There was two guys that were in their 80s, and they were great guys, and they showed up to work, advise their clients, and they did retire eventually,
Exactly.
But they didn't retire in their 60s. So
correct.
Anyways, good one, Corey.
All right, Jake, loud budgeting started as a joke. It may actually work.
Yeah. So do you know what loud budgeting is without reading it?
Talking about your budget out loud. It's my best guess.
Yeah. So it's basically letting your friends know that whatever they want to do, or what, you don't have to say I've got a budget. Say, that doesn't fit in my budget, or that's not what I have my money allocated towards, but also offering up something else. So an example in the article, Cory, is that, if you and Cassie and your friend group, somebody suggested that they wanted to go out to, Capitol Grill or whatever, right? They wanted to
Sure.
go out and rent a room in Capitol Grill and have 20 of you there and all split the meal. Maybe somebody in that friend group would say, hey, that doesn't really line up with what we have allocated our money for this month. How about instead we all come over to my house and we do a potluck and we play games, right? So the thought behind this is that, it's actually starting to work for some people. Instead of always kind of having to feel like you need to keep up with the Joneses or hide where your money's going to, the argument is that if you're vocal about it, and if you have the proper group of people around you, that's actually a good thing to keep you accountable, because the person that's not talking about their budget may go to Capitol Grill, Cory, charge it on their credit card, the $300 they spend that night or whatever, and then never pay it, or take 5 years to pay that off, right? And that's all because they were ashamed or shy of saying, hey, but I guess my question is, do you feel comfortable telling your friend group that's not in your budget? Like, will your ego allow that for you?
That would not bother me at all.
Yeah.
If it's how I felt, it wouldn't bother me at all to say it.
Right. Yeah. If I had some friends that wanted to go to Europe and spend 20 grand, I would be like, no, I don't want to do that. So, but
Right.
I love the idea though, without saying no, because that could feel a little embarrassing for some people, is I
Sure.
love it. So if you're going to do this loud budgeting, is to offer up an alternative. Hey, instead of going to Europe, let's go to Branson or wherever, right? Or St. Louis. That's a very European city, isn't it, Cory?
There you go. That's right.
So I don't
That's
know.
good.
I think it's good. So it started as a joke, but the argument is that it may actually work.
How did that start as a joke?
I don't know. I think actually the article said somebody did something on TikTok, which I didn't go bother to watch the TikTok video,
Okay.
but I think somebody did a video saying, no, I can't do this. I can't afford it. So that's where it was a joke. But then it like took off and people embraced it and was like, no, that's awesome. I can't afford that either. So that's kind of where I think it was going with it. If I remember.
I would have nothing but respect for someone who told me that, though. If I invited them to do something, I would not be upset with them. I would rather them tell me that than spend money that they shouldn't be on whatever I'm proposing, or vice versa.
Yes, I agree. And the last thing that person should feel ashamed. No, they're being responsible.
Yes.
That's a very admirable. That's a very admirable trait. I agree. All right, Cory.
I like it.
All right, good. So let's go to the next one here. The chart of the century from Mark Perry. Who is Mark Perry?
Good question. Mark Perry is an economist. I know that he's written for the American Enterprise Institute and a few others, but bold proclamation here, chart of the century. That is what this has actually been dubbed by the financial community since this first came out in 2018, and it's continued to be updated. But what you're looking at here, Jake, is going back to the beginning of 2000 through the end of 2023, different categories of expenses that make up the CPI, or Consumer Price Index, that's measured by the Bureau of Labor Statistics in our country. So that's where this data comes from. The same people that are measuring the CPI data that's released each and every month. And this is highlighting what different expenses have done in the last 23 years. And I'm curious, Jake, when you look at this, because I think it, in a lot of ways, it speaks for itself. It probably says different things to different people. What do you see when you look at this?
I looked at the outliers first, and I think it's pretty, again, I'm not a chart guy at all, but I think it's pretty cool to see, actually, because the TVs, you're right, have gotten a lot cheaper, and medical stuff has gotten more expensive, and college tuition. So, but what are we supposed to, so what is it telling us though, Cory? Like, what do I care about TVs or medical services? Like, what does that matter?
I think it matters for people to understand what their personal inflation rate is. I think it matters for people to understand what the expenses for these different categories have done. And I think that there's probably a lot of different conclusions that people may draw individually from this. I know that I certainly did. And that's what I was looking for.
Let's talk about that real quick. So if somebody's going to college, and so their inflation would be a lot higher, right? Because their college tuition cost is a lot more than when I went to college. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay. What were you saying? I interrupted you. What did you pull from this?
Well, what I pulled from this is that all of the services and expenses that have grown the most, that have become the most expensive in the last 23 years, are the areas that our government is the most heavily involved in subsidizing.
Interesting.
That's what jumped out of the page at me the first time I looked at this, as far as hospital services, higher education, college, childcare, medical services, etc. And
You
I
know,
also think, go ahead.
well, a positive though is the average hourly wage went up more than inflation. So
Yep,
I think that's a great piece of data in this chart. It's saying,
it
hey,
is.
if people are complaining about inflation, they really can't that much because their wages have grown faster than inflation, in my opinion. Again, it's all with your
Right.
personal
Not as fast as
inflation.
the hospital services, but yes,
Yeah, but more than broad inflation.
absolutely. And not everything has gotten more expensive. That's worth pointing out here too, which is exactly what this displays.
Yeah, as long as it's not trying to predict the future, I'm not anti this chart.
It's just
It's
looking at
pretty
the data.
cool. What?
I said it's just looking at data. It has nothing to do with the direction things are headed. It's just the direction they've gone.
It's pretty cool. Actually, it's not. It's a pretty cool chart. Thank you for sharing this one.
Yeah, I saw somebody commented on this, Jake. They tweeted this and they said, "Thank goodness the government doesn't subsidize TVs or toys," and that made me laugh. That made me chuckle.
That's
So
good. That's good. Good one, Cory. Thank you.
you got it. All right, Jake. Couples are hiring birds of prey, falcons. Couples are hiring birds of prey to be ring bearers at their wedding.
Yeah, Cory. So I thought this would be a fun topic or headline to have in here today. And so, yeah, that's right. It's a falcon or an owl, and basically the bird will come up from behind your wedding audience, fly in, swoop between the aisle, and deliver the rings to your best man or you, whoever, or your wife, future wife. So my question to you, Cory, is this a good use of money?
The short answer would be no. The longer answer, in my opinion, that's what I would say. But to each their own. What do you
Yeah.
think?
So how much money would be I'll tell you how much it cost or one person charges, but how much would you pay to so let's say Cassie really wanted you to do this for your wedding.
Mm.
So how much would you pay? Would be willing to pay to do this?
If it was really important, that's a tough question. I don't know, because I think I would first have to explain how it
Throw
was
out a
not
number.
very
Throw out a
important to me.
number. How much is it worth it? If
100
Cassie said
bucks.
$100, that's it for a bird
100
of prey.
bucks. It's not
And
important to me.
your future wife said, Cory, this is the only thing I want. This is the most important thing in our wedding. And you said
Mm.
$100?
Well, I would say let's talk about what we should pay for it and figure out if we can find someone.
$100?
See if
Come
we can find
on.
a bird that'll accept that amount, or see if we need to find a more expensive bird. What do you think?
It's
I,
$1,200.
it's just
It's $1,200. Now, I think for someone like me with the last name Falcon,
sure.
it would have been worth it. It would have been worth
That's
it.
fair. I will not argue with you on
Because
that.
it's I mean, you pay a lot, you waste a lot of money on weddings. Tablecloths, the food, the band, the pictures, the videographer, blah, blah, blah. My argument is if this is cool and that important to you, then you can cut areas in other places to afford this. Again, well, you're talking, it's probably less than a minute. And the bird will do cameos after, and so you can have the bird hang out with your party afterwards a little bit too.
The bird does the first dance.
I think they said another couple did it. I think their last name was Eagle. So I get that.
Fair.
I think only because my name is Falcon would I have investigated this if I knew about it. I don't know. Rachel actually would have liked it because she likes falconry. She thinks it's
Sure.
cool.
It
So
is
I think
cool.
she would have been on board. So again, to my takeaway is it is worth it more than $100, Cory, in my opinion. It is worth it if
Your opinion.
you can cut things otherwise. So my point is you should have a wedding budget. They're expensive. 20, 30, 50, 100 grand, whatever you and your family can afford and can justify. If you can fit it in that budget, then by all means, it's worth it. But if this is causing you to go into debt or to go over your budget, then you should reconsider it. Just like anything else in life. So
Yes.
that was pretty cool one though, Cory. $100 for a
100
bird
bucks.
for a bird of prey to swoop in and deliver your wedding rings? $100?
Yes, that's just not important to me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. There's a bird. All right, Cory. Well,
I like that the bird will hang out and do cameos. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well into adulthood and still getting money from their parents. Ooh, let's talk about this one.
Adults under 35, still me, Jake, for your proclamation for several years, not for much longer, but adults under 35 are getting more financial support from family later in life. It's really what the data has shown. And adult parents in a survey that was done, I thought this was really interesting. Adult parents say that helping their adult children or having them live at home oftentimes has actually enhanced or strengthened the relationship that they have with their children. But a number of them have also said that it's dented their own finances. So what I wanted to ask you, Jake, was how do you tell clients to handle a situation where they're helping their adult children, but maybe to the point where it's actually detrimental to them? How do you handle that? Because it's tricky.
Yes, it depends. And to use my bird analogy here, you have to at some point let your children spread their wings and fly. So I think it's very tricky, though. You're right, because, and again, I don't have children yet. Hopefully one day, and you've got a daughter on the way. So it's easy for me to say because I don't have a child that I'm trying to support. So I get it. I get it that, you know, no parent probably wants their children to fail or to go on hard times or to rack up credit card debt. So they want to be there to financially support them. But at what level are you enabling childish behavior and you're not letting your children grow up to be adults? So this is a very fine line. So normally with clients, Cory,
Mm-hmm.
I am all aboard. If, for example, I just met with somebody who wants to help fund their children's Roth IRAs while they're young, and you know their children have jobs and they don't live at home, but they want to be able to help them start saving for their retirement more so than the children are able to do on their own. To me, that's a great one, right? Because you're putting something in a retirement account. You can educate your children like, hey, this isn't for you now. This is for when you're 60 or older, but I'm going to help you out so that you're ahead of the game later. I think giving your kid beer money
An
is not a
allowance?
good.
Because they
So they
talked
can
about that in this article.
really, yeah. So they can lay on the couch or, you know, have zero ambition or make excuses, right? Is not okay, right? So that's what you have to juggle. And sometimes it's, again, easy for me to say, you've got to give them tough love. And you got to say, look, I'm not, especially if you're 30 years old and you're living off your parent, like that's, to me, that's not okay. I don't know what child would be okay with that. So it's
Yeah, it's a
about,
whole other question.
yeah, it's about, again, getting out there and spreading your wings. And again, there's no judgment here. If you're watching this or listening to Upticks and you're helping your adult child, because you love them and want to support them, or maybe they've fallen on hard times, I get it. However, there needs to be some financial literacy, financial education, some accountability involved in this. Otherwise, they're never going to get it. And they're going to be in their 40s struggling, their 50s struggling, their 60s. So I'm okay with supporting them as long as you have a plan in place for them to eventually get on their own 2 feet and not need your money. And then I want to hear your thoughts. But my other thought to your question is, and you absolutely should not do this if it is going to hurt your own financial plan. It's the whole adage, if you're in an airplane and the oxygen mask falls, cover your mouth first. You cannot disrupt your own retirement plan by helping your children, thinking your children are going to turn around and help you, because if they've got financial problems now, they may have them later, and then you're both going to be out of luck. So as long as your financial plan can support some extra money going towards your child and you feel like you have a plan in place to get them on their own 2 feet, that's fine. But I do not want to see any client, and again, this is not advice, but I don't want to see people hurting themselves to try to prop up their children. What do you think, Cory?
It's tricky. There's a lot that's involved. Every situation is different. My point of view on it is that this is something that people, if they're going to do this, if people need to or want to help support their adult children, they can and should if their financial plan supports it, like you said, Jake. But I also think that communicating that is crucial. This is something that anybody who's watching or listening to this very well might agree with a lot of what we're talking about, but finding the right way to actually talk about that with their spouse, with their children, to set those expectations, to talk about what the plan is, that can be the tricky part. And that also oftentimes is often the part, and at least from my own experience that I've seen from working with enough people, that's the part that doesn't happen. People don't talk about, this is going to last for a period of time. This is intended to accomplish this. Here's sort of conditions sometimes, even if parents are going to help their adult children, that they want to put around it. But I think that everybody being open and communicating about that and being aligned is crucial, or else it ultimately opens up the opportunity for resentment, for frustration.
Yeah, this is the perfect reason to hire a wealth advisor, though. Like, let us be the third party, unemotional referee in
Yes.
this very difficult financial road you're trying to navigate. So I love it, Cory. Like you said, like communication is very critical. I understand though, if you're not able to have this conversation with your son or daughter, because it is tough. So you should bring them into our office and say, all right, we need to have a family meeting. We need to set up a plan so that we can help them. And we need to, kind of create some rules or some structure around how we're going to do it, when it's going to be done, and let us be the guide to help both of you and your children get through this financial situation. So I love it, Cory. Communication is critical, and I don't think families should feel like they have to go at this alone. Hire your wealth
Yes.
advisor, your friends. We've got great financial planners. They can talk about budgeting with your children. They can talk about your financial plan. They can create a plan for your children. So again, we've got the resources and the tools and the experience. Cory, you and I have had thousands of meetings over, again, our careers. And so we've come across many different, examples of ways that we can help guide these people through these decisions. Good one. I like that one. Good
All
one.
right. Let's see here, Jake. So there's a new option in your 401k. Read this before you try it.
Yeah. So takeaway here is what I'm talking about is that many 401ks offer managed accounts, which is basically, Cory, a robot. So you would answer a generic questionnaire. You'd have to pay an additional fee, but then now you're going to get this custom blend of investments in your 401k. And they charge typically 0.5% or less. So it's not a ton of money. Now, what's interesting from this article, Cory, is that performance has shown slightly better for people who use these, although weirdly, the allocations that they come up with look similar to what people kind of do on their own, or if they use a target date fund, believe it or not. So my takeaway here is that the managed accounts may actually force awareness and discipline over just actual better performance. So again, what I'm talking about is if you're working still and you've got a 401k, your 401k provider may offer a managed account program for an additional fee. The argument is that people that opt into this, I'm suggesting they might have a better awareness and more discipline because they are paying for a service. So as a result, the studies are showing that their performance is a little bit better, even though their allocations aren't crazy different. Isn't that interesting? I thought that was fascinating.
It is interesting.
My argument, though, against this, Cory, is I still don't think a bot can do what a human wealth advisor can do. So quick plug and a quick call to action as we wrap up today's show is that actually Falcon Wealth Advisors, we can manage your 401k for you, and we will not do some generic questionnaire. We're actually going to sit down with you, look at your financial plan, your goals and objectives and everything, and then we will build out a 401 allocation based on your real financial plan, not just some cookie cutter questionnaire, and then we can manage it for you. So I think we take it to the next level. I'm glad to see that there is an option so that individuals, because I think the individual gets in trouble with trying to day trade their 401k or micromanage it. So I think it's good that there's options. But again, I'm, little quick commercial here for Falcon Wealth Advisors, but we do this. And so we can certainly help clients that are interested. If a 401k management is something you want to look at, let us know, and we can certainly talk about it. You have any thoughts on this one, Cory?
My thoughts are that if you're gonna pay someone to do it, I would pay a human before I'd pay a robot, but that's just me.
Yeah, good point. Because you're just going into some algorithm and it's fine. I mean, again, the good news is that the performance technically it looks like it's shelling out to be a little bit better, but I think you can do even better. Very good. And I forgot to plug this, but again, in the beginning of the show, so thank you all for tuning in. Cory, our subscriber count is marching very quickly to 1,000 on YouTube. So thank you everyone who's subscribed. Please like, 5-star reviews, share our content. We're recording Upticks to enhance financial literacy. That's the whole reason for Cory and I taking time out of our busy schedules to do this show. Cory, any other calls of actions or key takeaways today?
I had one other call to action. The next time you talk to your advisor, if you work with one, ask them what their succession plan is. Ask them when they plan to retire. Is it at the same time as you? And if it is, then what?
Good. Well, you just opened that up. What's your succession plan, Cory?
My succession, well, I know I'm not going to retire in the next 10 years. I know I'm not going to retire in the next 20 years. I have a financial plan myself. I do believe in walking the talk and eating our own cooking, Jake. So I meet with the financial planners on our team myself to review my financial plan, and I have 65 as my target for retirement, which is about 30 years from now.
So in 30 years, though, the idea is that we'll also have a whole nother layer of financial planners ready and willing to take on client relationships and keep advising our clients' families, hopefully for many, many years.
But based on what we talked about earlier, who knows? At 65, I'm like, I got another decade in me, Jake. Who knows? We'll find out.
You might. Well, good. Well, thank you, Cory. As always, this is a fun, energetic show. And thank you all for tuning in. We hope you have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Upticks. Click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. Also, be sure to visit our website, falconwealthadvisors.com, and click the Contact Us button if you'd like to meet with Jake and his team.